Hello and welcome to the month of Copilot.
We're absolutely delighted to bring you an entire month of Copilot content across all of the different Copilots from some of those people who've really been at the coalface over the last year.
Absolutely, really excited to see what we can bring from all sorts of different people, all different perspectives, and things from there. Just for those of us who don't know us, maybe we should do some introductions. Zoe.
Hi everyone, I'm Zoe Wilson and I'm a modern workplace exec at Avanade, where I lead one of our global modern work practices. I'm also a Microsoft Regional Director and MVP of Viva Explorer and the co-host of the Copilot Connection podcast.
And I'm Kevin McDonnell. I'm a Copilot strategy and modern workplace AI lead at Avanade. Also an MVP, also an Viva Explorer, and also not used to doing this outside of the podcast and a nice scripted intro that we always try and stick to, which is why we're stuttering slightly here. And for the very first time, we're doing this live, putting it straight out. No chance to edit, no chance to stop if any of the cats jump in or kids or anything like that. So you get to see all the fun and games from this today.
Yeah,
But
so there are no cats in my office at the moment, although I
at
can't
the moment,
guarantee that my other half won't open the door and let one in if there's one outside.
I do have to say, for anyone planning to do an event like this over a month, when you think about starting that, maybe realize that the 1st of June is a Saturday and it's a lot harder to juggle things around. But we'll come to that at some point. So we should probably kick off and talk a little bit about what is the month of Copilot.
So what we really wanted to do was to bring together lots of different information around all of the different co-pilots, bringing experience from people, like I said, who've actually been at the coalface. Because when you look at this journey over the last 12 or 18 months, things have moved so quickly. And everybody is having the same challenge. Everyone's struggling to get up to speed and to understand, what's real, what's possible. So we really wanted to just bring together some fresh content with real world experiences and help all of you with that upskilling journey.
Absolutely. And rather than kind of put it on a day, and we know these remote events get harder and harder, we thought we'd Jim either do these occasional live streams. Well, we've got some pre-recorded videos from some experts that we're going to put on YouTube, on LinkedIn. So you can either join them when they kind of premiere and join in the chatter on this. We'll be keeping an eye on the chats, which reminds me I need to keep an eye on that. Or just kind of watch it when you want to and add your own comments and keep an eye then. So following along with that, we'll hopefully bring a few surprises during the month, and we're intentionally not putting the speakers and the sessions out from there because we want to kind of build up on that interest as people go along, and nothing at all to do with the fact that some of the people who've said they'd commit videos haven't quite got there yet. So absolutely nothing to do with that at all.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to people, it has been a busy month, hasn't it? Between the European Collab
Gotcha.
Summit, Build, Thrive Conference, Dynamics Mind. So we know that people have been doing a lot of traveling, but we've already had some really great sessions that have been submitted, and we've got more coming as well. So make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube, and keep your eyes peeled for all of the great content that we'll be sharing.
Absolutely. And we're going to try and get some demos and things. There are some of the sessions and where we see gaps. We'll make sure we give some examples of that so that people can use as shorter content as well. But today, though, we thought we'd kind of kick this off as a keynote to introduce a bit of what Month of Copilot is, but also to connect all the different Copilots together within there. So we're going to talk a little bit about the story and evolution. You mentioned there, Zoe, that's 12 to 18 months. And I sat there and pondered and went, gosh, it is coming up to 18 months that this kind of story of Copilot and generative AI has been around, which is terrifying on there. So we'll talk about the history and how that's evolved, the different types of Copilots, when to use them as well. We'll look at the opportunities and the challenges that you've got with Copilot. One of the things we've always said with Copilot Connection as part of the podcast and the YouTube series is we want to be honest. We don't just want to be the kind of marketing positive side that you get from partners. And, we do this ourselves. And Microsoft, we want to be honest with where some of the challenges are with that as well and what you can do around those as well. But it's also important that this is for you, not just for your organization. So think about what you need to do to be well placed to succeed with Copilot, whether that's using it, whether it's rolling it out, all those areas we'll look at, and then how you can find out more about Copilot itself. But shall we kick off?
Yeah, let's go.
Or Zoe, I've suddenly realized in the way I'm sharing that this isn't the nice use of Teams where I can share and take control. So are we going to have a next slide, please? I assume we'll just do that, will we?
Let's try to avoid the use of next slide, please, if we can at all.
I think we can probably manage that. So we'll kick off from that idea to reality. So thinking about what happened there when we come to, and that's not going to work up there, when we came to the kind of start of all this world of generative AI, and really it kind of started in 2015 when OpenAI formed, when they brought that non-profit open source organization. Elon Musk was part of it, them as well as Sam Altman and many others, and they were there to kind of take AI, build new ideas, new things, but intended to be open source for everyone to make use of. Now, as that evolved and a little bit of reality probably came along, they changed a bit of the structure, and they split out between the kind of open source world of things moving within there to actually having a product. And that's when they started to bring together what became ChatGPT. Within there, and the different versions that they were bringing through from that. I think that was probably 2019. That must have been I guess 2 and the elements in there. In fact, it was 2000 when we got onto the GPT-3 being released. And I remember seeing this and trying it out, where it was just an API. There was no way you could kind of get to there unless you were building a bit of code to use it. I started to use it to build up a kind of mock Microsoft 365 environment. I was doing a lot of Viva stuff and wanted to do Viva Insights. I was like, how am I going to think up names of teams? And you could use that API to generate the names of teams, and you could use it to generate a bit of conversation. I was like, wow, this is really quite clever. And people were starting to see the potential. I don't think anyone really kind of tweaked on to quite how much it would jump ahead. Apart from, I would say, Microsoft, who invested that $1 billion into it, who really kind of got ahead of the game. We then had, with the release in 2022 of GitHub Copilot, but also, I just realized that caption's wrong at the bottom of that one. 2022 was the release of GitHub Copilot. So it's starting to use some of these generative AI capabilities to do things. It almost powered the IntelliSense using this huge source of all the GitHub code to help people accelerate and become more productive when they were writing code. It would nudge people on. It was that word of Copilot to help you, to be alongside you, that first came along there. And then, ignoring that caption from the previous one, in 2022, what was it? I think it was November, wasn't it? I remember the end of November. Within there, that it became the fastest ever growing service, sort of eclipsing all the other social medias, all the other ones that came available. And I remember having, I'm a cub leader, and we went for a hike, and I had other parents asking about it. I was like, you never asked me about SharePoint. This is outrageous. I never hear a thing about Viva. But suddenly this world I was living in was becoming part of the conversation. People were just seeing this as amazing, seeing this as the game changer by making it available to as many people as possible, and really having that personality, that ease of use from it. It jumped ahead. And I remember, Zoe, you and I, we started chatting about this. And like, where is this going to go in that world of modern work? What can this look like? And in 2023, Microsoft actually came along to that, and they brought along this Copilot. It realized that power of those GPTs into Microsoft 365, into that hub of where everyone was working. And Microsoft became one of those first movers, and in January stated that they would incorporate AI products into everything.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so it was actually at Davos in January where Satya said that they talked about their investments in OpenAI and the fact that they were going to embed this generative AI capability into all of their products. What he actually said was every product of Microsoft will have some of the same AI capabilities to completely transform the product. And that was a really clear statement of intent. And what we saw was, this kind of bold statement that we're going to put this in all of our products, and then this flurry of announcements and new features and new products that followed after that. So GitHub Copilot, as you've already talked about, next slide, please. I was trying to avoid having to say that. So GitHub Copilot, as you've already talked about, that was actually a precursor to this statement from Satya at Davos. And when you talk to people who've been using it for a long time and who have also been using some of the other Copilots, this is actually one of the favorite products. Like developers see so much value in the that AI paired programming capability. So GitHub Copilot, October 2021. And then Viva Sales was another one actually where that had some of this generative AI capability, and that was actually rebranded to Sales Copilot in June 2023. And then in February, we had another announcement, which was for Bing Chat. So they announced this new AI-powered Bing search engine and Edge browser. So again, if you think about this in terms of timeline, so 17th of January, Satya said we're going to put this in all of our products. And then February 9th, they're already announcing this consumer capability where they're putting this into their search engine and their browser.
And suddenly people wanted to use Bing again, which was fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, it's the thing that made Bing relevant.
And it's funny seeing that on the slide of introducing the new Bing. I completely forgotten it was called that at that point as well.
Yeah. And then moving on to the next announcement, March 6th. Do you want to talk about this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so this brought it into the world of biz apps. So it's announced those Dynamics 365 Copilots. So where we had what was Viva Sales, this moved back into that Dynamics world. It brought in customer services, marketing, the customer insights, business central. It became foundational to a lot of that. And what was interesting, we will talk a little bit about licensing a little later, but this was all included in some of the premium licensing that was already there for Dynamics. This wasn't all about selling more. It was bringing that capability into what people already had, enabling the content that was already there in many cases. Not in all cases, before you correct me too much there, Zoe, but it was bringing that capability and kind of enabling that premium services that were there in Dynamics and making people more effective with what they had. And then we saw that flurry as it came in March into the Copilot for Microsoft 365. Again, it's that flow of work. I know an overused phrase over the last 2 or 3 years with Microsoft, but it is there then where people are doing the majority of their work, where they're sitting in Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, what was then Business Chat and now has just become Microsoft Copilots within there. And it also brought it into Power Apps. So it's starting to bring those kind of citizen developers. It became more available for people to use to accelerate some of the more the complex things that people go. Obviously, people are using Power Apps regularly within there. Nice and simple. people could do that themselves. But people like myself who don't necessarily use Power Apps and Power Platform day in, day out, I always forget the syntax. And suddenly bringing Copilot has helped to level that playing field from those who use it regularly to those who use it occasionally. That's the same with those office-based ones as well within there. And then we saw what was Security Copilot really helping. I think it was announced then, wasn't released in March, if I'm right, with that one. And I think all of these were announced then and not necessarily available to people, but it was starting to come more and more from there, and more Copilots coming through.
Yeah, so these were just the announcements, and you can see again, if we think back to that 17th of Jan Satya statement at Davos, this is only 2 months later, and then suddenly, by the time we got to build, there was Windows Copilot, Fabric Copilot, Power BI Copilot, Azure Copilot. We started to see the first of the renames as well. So not confusing at all, renaming Bing to Microsoft Copilot just causes a whole heap of confusion. Power Virtual Agents rebranded to Copilot Studio. We, as well as the new Copilots, we also saw the announcement of the early access program. So in May, Microsoft announced that they'd be running the early access program for Copilot for M365, and that started in July. There is an early access program for Copilot for security as well, which actually only started in January of this year. But you can just see the momentum that Microsoft were picking up over the course of the last year. And then obviously build happened recently, and we saw new announcements for things like Team Copilot there. Announcements of things like the agentification and this kind of next level of moving from personal copilots to group copilots or team copilots, and then handing off to agents. So that momentum isn't going anywhere.
Absolutely. And what I found fascinating talking about that early access preview is that people were paying to be on a preview. Usually a preview is something where we're going to try this out, we're going to let you use it for a bit for free, and then we'll work out the licensing later. Microsoft saw the excitement and probably saw the cost of getting moving with this. And the excitement was enough that people were willing to pay to get into this. And I still, it blows my mind, that and the enthusiasm and the power of Copilot as well.
Yeah, I think it also, the fact that this was the first pay-to-play private preview, and the fact that this preview essentially it happened in the open, didn't it? I think it also demonstrates the cost of actually running these services from the Microsoft perspective as well.
Absolutely. And I remember, Zoe, we had the first chance that we got to do a session on Copilot for M365 with Al Early at the South Coast Summit, and Donna was talking there about the number of different Copilots.
Yeah, I mean, so these images are actually a few months old now. So I expect this to be significantly higher. But I think were these from MPPC? This was from autumn, I think. And what Donna had shared was that there were 89 unique Copilots and 155 code branches. So the reason there are more code branches is because one Copilot, so Copilot in Word, will have code branches for Mac, for Windows, for iOS, for Android. And again, that just demonstrates the sheer complexity and also the speed at which Microsoft have been doing this. And one of the things that blows my mind is that, when you think about that development lifecycle, that's probably only possible because their engineers are using GitHub Copilot to actually build these Copilots.
It's a catch-22, isn't it? It's brilliant.
Yeah.
No, I think there's so many there, and one of the early challenges that we saw with the Copilots were the number of different ones, and trying to explain that to people was like, I still, I'm going to get together a t-shirt. It might be out of date by the time I get it, but which Copilot are you talking about? I remember a conversation with someone, I won't name her, but she was talking about how it didn't help with Copilot. It didn't do these things. I was like, no, it does all these things. And we were 5 minutes into the chat before I realized she was talking about Copilot and Power Apps. And I was talking about Copilot for Microsoft 365 because we were just using that phrase Copilot. And there is a lot of difference around the context. So one of the things we've tried to do is to kind of make it a little bit simpler to bring that down. I found this slide has resonated with a lot of people in terms of how the co-pilots are used. You've got those co-pilots that everyone within an organization will use. Your kind of co-pilot in Windows, your co-pilot in Edge and Bing, otherwise known as Microsoft Copilot, your co-pilot for Microsoft 365. They're there to help you generally with your productivity, to make you more innovative, to help the quality of things you're creating in there. And as Phil Worrell's just mentioned in the comments there, yes, we now have Team Copilot. Again, that's for everyone and for those groups to work together as well. That's in that Copilot for everyone. You've then got the more specific ones that are by role. So actually helping particular roles within there. So you could be looking at Copilots for sales or Copilot in D365 sales, the marketing ones. You could look at GitHub Copilot helping developers. And they've been in many cases, I'm stuttering slightly because I mentioned GitHub, but in many cases, they're using that same underlying Copilot engine, but they're being catered for that endpoints to focus on the common tasks, such as sales. It's kind of bringing forward the information you need. When you're going to a client, here's the latest that's had that conversation with the client, be able to summarize that and make you most effective within those. And then you've got those Copilot by scenario, those specific cases building on generative AI. And in those cases, generally, you're looking at more likely building a custom Copilot for something you need. I love the example of a policies Copilot. So where you have your corporate policies, your HR ones, your IT ones, being able to ask questions of that and getting the answers from there. Now, how you build that custom one, as of build recently, will be changing. We've obviously got those Copilots in SharePoint, Copilot Studio, etc. But it building out those specific scenario, that case that works for you and your organization and specific people within that as well. So building that all together then with the different areas where you can use the Copilot, you've got that customer experience where you're building generative AI to help your customers and help how you interact with customers. You've got that employee experience where you're looking to help all employees be more effective. And then those specialist roles within there, you end up with a lovely matrix that you can pull together to start to look and simplify these down. So focusing on these top level Copilots, such as Copilot in Dynamics 365, which cuts across that customer experience and employee experience, but it's really looking at particular roles such as the marketing and the sales, your frontline worker within there. You've got the for service and for sales that are helping improve that customer experience by engaging with your customers, with your sales teams, by servicing your customers with effective customer service within there. You've got that employee experience with all the Copilots in Viva. You've got those citizen developers empowered with Power Platform. You've got everyone being helped by Copilot from Microsoft 365. You've got the more specialist roles, such as Copilot for finance, which helps your finance teams and those involved in that be more efficient, whether they're using Dynamics, whether they're using things like SAP as well. And this starts to make it a bit easier to see where these things slide together. And on the right with those scenarios, I probably should update this and talk about things like Copilot in SharePoint now. Actually, no, I'm getting the wrong one. It's SharePoint Copilot, I think, isn't it? It's getting naming, which we will talk about in just 1 second on there. You've got building out those particular ones that you can do yourselves, whether it's using the Azure stack with AI Studio or even just the custom Azure elements, building in that Azure OpenAI with the very latest models of the GPT-4o, or the Copilot Studio that gives you that low-code way of engaging with that. So while there are a lot of different Copilots, and I haven't even gone into the Copilot and Power Apps, Copilot and Power Platform, you get the idea. There's a whole load of different things within there. But you may have noticed we've tried to be fairly specific about the naming. And Zoe, you touched on the renaming of things. There's actually quite a lot of logic and sense once you get over that. Maybe you want to talk and help people, because I found this slide has been very popular when I've shared it.
Yeah, so one of the things that you might have noticed over the last few months is Microsoft renaming a lot of the products, and what they've started to do now is to follow a naming convention where you've got Copilot for or Copilot in. So Copilot for Microsoft 365, Copilot in Windows, or Copilot in Teams, Copilot in Word. And when you actually start to understand the naming convention, it does make a lot of sense. So if it's Copilot for something, it's generally it's almost like a bundle where you've got Copilot across a few different things. It's generally a premium SKU, so additional licensing. So things like Copilot for Sales, that gives you Copilot for M365, which is then embedded in all of the M365 products. It gives you Copilot Studio. It gives you the Copilot Sales integration as well. What was Viva Sales? So that integration into things like Salesforce. And then you've got Copilot in something. So that's embedded in a specific product, like Copilot in Windows, Copilot in SharePoint, Copilot in Viva. And for where it's Copilot in, generally it's included already in a specific license. So Copilot in Windows isn't a premium product. Copilot in Viva it's not something that you pay extra for to have the Copilot capabilities. It's included in the Viva Suite licensing. So you do still need the premium licensing for Viva, but by buying that Viva Suite license, it gives you the Copilot capability. So Copilot in Viva. Anything else you want to add onto this, Kevin?
The only other thing I've had that's kind of evolved even more now is this within the Copilot 4 that we're starting to see those role-based ones. So for service, for sales, for manufacturing as the more recent one. And again, you're right, it's that all-encompassing, but looking at those, almost that role-based is starting to evolve a bit more. And we kind of saw that in the Viva world where they had those role-based Viva services. I think that's really all moved over to Copilot as supporting that as well, which is really nice.
Yeah. And then if we take a look at how Copilots are purchased and the different kind of licensing, so premium per user licensing, things like Copilot for M365, Copilot for Sales, Copilot for Service, those are purchased as an add-on license to an M365 subscription, and it has a per user per month cost. Then you've got some where it's included, like the Copilot in Viva one, things like Power Automate, Power Platform, that's included in the Power Automate, Power Apps licensing. And then you've got others that are consumption based, where the charge is actually based on how much of the service you use. So things like the OpenAI service in Azure that you'd use for building custom Copilots, that has a consumption-based pricing rather than that per user license.
Absolutely. And I think probably an example to add to that consumption-based is also the Copilot for security. It's not quite how much you use it. I know there's some complexity. We have Rue Campbell on talking about that on the Copilot Connection podcast a few episodes ago, which has been very popular within there. So talking about that's almost those blocks, isn't it? You go to certain levels and it's the number of, I've forgotten what it's called, it's security units or something, isn't it, that you consume within there. But effectively, it's a bit like consumption based. So I'm going to cheat because I like the 3 blocks there and put it under that as well.
Yeah. So the other one that I'm not sure where it's going to land yet is the Team Copilot that was announced at Build.
Yeah.
And they haven't talked about what they intend to do from a licensing perspective. So I'm wondering, is this going to be included in the M365 Copilot license? Could it be something that they potentially add into the Teams Premium licensing, or will it look like something else, and what does that look like? And I don't think any of us know the answer to that yet, so it will be interesting to see what path that follows.
I'm keeping very quiet because I did hear something and I can't remember where, so I don't want to breach any NDAs at the moment. As we're talking about Team Copilot and talking there, I noticed Phil Worrell did mention, and I think the Team Copilot could lead to some very interesting naming and confusion with that one. So yes, good point on that, Phil, and probably good point if you are watching live. Do drop us a comment if you've got any questions from there as well. So you kind of got an idea on all the different Copilots are there, how you can divide those together. You've got an idea on the different ways they're licensed and how you can purchase those on there. I want to go a little bit further and talk a bit about the decision when it comes to Copilots, because there's lots of different ways. You could use one of those Copilots we're talking about, whether it's Copilot from Microsoft 365, whether it's one of the ones in Dynamics, and you could purchase that license and make use of that. But it might not quite get what you want. It may do a lot of it, but not quite be there. For example, if you're looking at Copilot for Microsoft 365, it's got Microsoft 365 within there, but nothing else. And you may have your Salesforce knowledge, your Workday, all sorts of other, your own bespoke line of business apps. And that's where it comes to extend. So you can take that enabling, using existing and adopting an existing Copilot and extend that out. So you can either scale that out to bringing in another system within there, or you could even scale in by extending. I mentioned that policy Copilot. You could scale in to say, if someone's asking about policies, I want to specifically bring from this area, not look through all my things, especially as a consultancy that works with many organizations on their policies. I don't want to know about someone else's policy that we're helping them with. I want to know about our one. And you want to kind of guide the Copilot to understand that and be more specific. And that can be done through extending with low code and pro code. I love the recent Microsoft builds. Jeff Teeper in the keynote really talked about those two elements. There's both ways of doing it that you can bring in there and get what you want. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about when the kind of decision points that you'd think on there. You've then got that option of building your own, and especially if you're looking at that customer experience. If you're building something, maybe you're wanting to build it onto your website, you're wanting to enable people to make use of that aren't your employees, you're definitely looking at a custom. And if you want something very specific for a very specific scenario that doesn't sit within the flow of work, you haven't got Copilot licenses. Copilot licenses. I almost stumbled on naming there. Lauren Strant, if you're listening, I'm going to be very careful on naming on that. But that's where you're building your custom, starting from scratch, using Copilot Studio or the Azure stack. I guess you could argue that using anything that uses generative AI could be considered a Copilot. There's a brand police in there trying to argue that one, I'm sure, within that. But that's your custom Copilot. It's not using an existing license from Microsoft 365. It's building something from scratch. And then underneath that, you've got that automation. Now, when I first talked about this slide, I thought in my head, I was thinking about sort of Power Automate and using the intelligence of Azure OpenAI to help you make decisions, maybe summarizing a document and getting that summary to kind of highlight what the changes are more effectively and quicker, really improving that business process. But as of build, we're now starting to see that conversation about agentification coming through, that automation, that AI powered, bringing that through and sitting within there, using things like AutoGen, using there's semantic kernel assistant AI, all these different things you can build these agents out of, again, whether low code or pro code, that can go and do things for you within that as well. So I really, Zoe, earlier you were talking about that evolution of agents is going to get more and more interesting as we go through as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where the real opportunity for reinvention of work comes. So what we've seen with I think with Copilots over the last few months is very much people discovering, understanding what that broad value looks like, and it's very much me as an individual looking at how I can build my Copilot muscle and develop the habits so that I can do my work a little bit better. You know, I can be a bit faster, a bit smarter. I can do things that are better quality more easily. But actually the real opportunity comes when we start to almost take a step back from the things that we do day to day and actually look at the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and the way that data flows through an organization and that kind of thing, and then apply kind of a Copilot lens to that. So that this whole automation and agentification, for me, this is where we can really start to reinvent business processes and transform how things happen within an organization, which is really exciting. And actually, I think where most of the ROI is going to come from for organizations who invest in this tech.
Absolutely. So coming back, I think we have some sessions on agentification and agents and that world that will be very interesting over the next month. But coming back to looking at extending and custom within there, there's kind of two key pillars that you'll hear spoken about a lot within there. I'm doing a little bit of disservice to things like the Teams message extensions and the Teams side, but kind of put that on the Azure side. So where I've got Azure AI Studio, it's really the pro code route of kind of doing developments, doing that deployment and things on there versus the low code world of Copilot Studio. I'm going to be entirely honest with you. These slides were put together this morning when I suddenly had a brainwave and said, right, let's put those in there. So I'm going to evolve these over time a little bit as well. But you've got this, let's say it's low code and pro code within there, that you can go for that Copilot Studio, as Zoe mentioned earlier, that Power Virtual Agent evolution, or you can go for the AI Studio using things like the bot framework, building out your capabilities within there, whether it's chat-based or not, you can build that through. But we're hearing a lot of questions and people asking, what should I use when? How do I decide? Because we're hearing that Copilot Studio is the answer to everything and can do everything within there. And I'll be honest, I don't think that's always the case, but I don't think there's an absolute easy answer to say, use this then, use that then. So what I wanted to try and get people thinking about are the different considerations for those different options within there. And I was trying to think of examples from the past that were useful. And I loved it when someone came up with pizza as a service. And I've been away at Disneyland Paris for the last few days and eating a lot of junk food there. And so I've been thinking about pizza quite a lot. And it came to me that this model actually works when it comes to extending and customizing. So if we look at Copilot Studio, it's a bit like buying a takeaway pizza. You can just call them up. You can go on the app, click the ones you want. You probably pay a little bit more than you would if you were making it yourself generally. And you've got a few set options. You can't choose any flavor. You can't have, what did we have the other day? Banana and pineapple on a pizza generally within there. You've only got a small amount of options depending on where you get it from. You've got some customization that you can bring to that. If you're using Azure, again, whether you're looking at those Teams message extensions, even looking at Power Platform connectors and things like that, that Azure AI Studio, you can get exactly what you want. You could use one of those templates, things like if you're looking at a custom one, there's the Teams AI. You can very quickly spin that up, host it, and get what you want. And you can run that cheaper, especially on that consumption based. If not many people are using it, then it will be a lower cost than paying for that regular monthly cost of Copilot Studio. So it could be cheaper depending on what you want, because you also could get very involved, get very specialized. If you're looking at the Azure, you could be talking about buying a pizza oven. My brother, and I think Zoe as well, has got those sort of infrared temperature monitors. You can get exactly the right flour and get really into this and trying it and getting very specific with exactly what you want that can be very specialized and taste absolutely gorgeous. But you've kind of got to prepare that dough for a day or so beforehand. You've got to get it all ready. You've got to make sure everyone's chosen what they want. You can lay those things out and pick them, but you can get to exactly where you want. If we look at what that means to kind of copilots, if you're looking at documents, rather than using the graph and kind of taking whatever's within there, you can use things like Azure AI Search. You can change how you what's the word I'm looking for? Not splitting up the documents. Brain's suddenly gone. But you can split down those documents into the different kind of vectors and areas going together, and you can be very specific around how they're linked together and how that works, tailored to the specific content you have. You can build in that logic that when certain things are asked, you get certain results. You can get exactly what you want, but you need to invest the time, you need to invest the effort to be able to do that. Now, this isn't saying all those different things, but if we look at those considerations, it's how much is this going to cost? You need to think about those costs. It's thinking about how much specialization do you have? Do you have those developers or partners you're happy and trust working with to create that? Do you have the ability to support that afterwards? Do you have the capabilities that it can do things on there? I've always seen today, been trying to get Copilot Studio working with my graph custom connectors, and there's something going wrong with the authentication. And it doesn't damn well tell me what's wrong. It just says, I haven't got any results. I don't know if it's my authentication. I don't know if there's no results coming back because I'm asking the wrong thing. I don't know if I haven't hooked it up properly. It doesn't give me that information. With Azure, I could put those extra logging. I can debug down to those lower level steps. It's those kind of examples as to where you want to go. What would I recommend you do? I recommend you try a little bit of both, or engage with a partner who has had some of that experience with both sides to work on that. There isn't going to be an easy answer for this. This is a complex world that is moving so ridiculously quickly. We talked about that kind of acceleration coming through. This is moving quickly, so keeping up with it will be absolutely important.
Yeah. And I think because it's moving so fast as well, there is just such a skills shortage at the moment, both on the like general Copilot, buying and off the shelf Copilot, but also when you start getting to extending and custom and complex custom AI solutions, there are just not enough people with the skills to actually be able to meet the demand and the speed that people are wanting to move at.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, we want to be honest with this. Let's maybe, Zoe, cover the good, the bad, and the ugly when we're talking about the different Copilots.
Yeah, so if we think across all of the Copilots, one of the things that we've seen that has been a real positive is buying an off-the-shelf Copilot, like Copilot for M365 or GitHub or something like that, makes it really easy to get generative AI into the hands of employees and to start to understand, how to use these things to be more productive, to be able to innovate, to be able to actually understand things like prompting, because this is a skill, and actually people who can write good prompts and get good outputs. It's similar to when we all had to learn how to search with Google many years ago. Being able to find what you're looking for with a well thought out search query is a skill. And by getting these tools into the hands of people, we can help
especially
them.
in some SharePoint tenants. That's a real skill sometimes.
Yes,
So,
yeah. So being able to kind of get these Gen AI functionalities into the hands of people, and for them to be able to start to utilize this effectively is a real positive. And I know that quite a lot of CIOs are seeing this now as the way to start that Gen AI journey. Start with an off-the-shelf Copilot, get it into the hands of people. And then as people start to understand what's possible, then you can start to progress into some of those more custom scenarios and that reinvention of work. When we think about the downside, though, this is expensive technology. It is pricey. It is going to cost. Whether it's that premium per user license, whether it's something included in a premium license you're already paying for, there's still a cost associated with that. Or whether it's consumption based, getting these features and this functionality into the hands of people will come with a premium price tag. So it's really important.
Even training people up, getting that adoption, the understanding, you have to realize it's not just paying for that license, turning it on, and throwing it out. It's guiding those people to that prompting, whether it's bringing in a partner or whether it's doing it yourselves. there is a cost element to that as well.
Yeah, because developing those skills, it doesn't happen automatically. When we look at Copilot for M365 or the artist formerly known as Bing, those kind of personal Copilots, essentially what these are personal productivity tools, which means that the choice to use them is personal and discretionary. So if an individual doesn't see the value in it, they can just choose not to use it. And when we think about productivity habits, these are habits that we've developed starting in school, then moving into our first job and all the way through our career. And it takes time to learn new habits. So people have to apply they have to kind of apply and do things over and over again and build that Copilot muscle. So it's not just investing in the tech, like Kevin said, it's investing in helping people build that Copilot muscle and develop those habits, which needs to be factored in as well. And then when we think about the ugly, there's also a cost elements associated with this as well, because essentially what Copilot is doing is applying Gen AI on top of existing digital platforms and services that you're using. So if you haven't done the heavy lifting to sort out your digital core, then you will struggle. Security by obscurity won't work anymore. You can't just assume that some content that's open to everybody will never be found because it's nested in a million folders deep in some random SharePoint site. You need to put the effort into actually making sure that your systems are modernized, that you've got data governance processes in place, whether it's M365 or D365, whatever the system is. And that you've also got life cycle management as well, so that the content that Copilot's reasoning over is high quality, it's high value, it's recent, it's relevant. And a lot of organizations just don't have that in place at the moment.
Absolutely. And what I would say is, we've almost picked two bad and one good, which is for something we're trying to push and think is a good idea, sounds bad. But these are things you need to consider to make sure you get the value out. These are the kind of downsides, because we talked about so many of the upsides, so many of the positives, it's making sure you have these things to make sure that cost of it, the effort you need to put in, is balanced out with the productivity gains, with the kind of innovative ways that people think about that improvement in quality. Now, there was actually a good question popped up from Phil of, apart from saving time, how do you measure the improvements that things can bring? And well, that's a very, very good question. I think the important thing is not just to measure kind of specific numbers. Those are important. So being able to see things like Viva Insights give you a great way of looking at the time spent of people doing different things. And you can get other things from the Copilot dashboards that show you how much Copilot's being used. So if it's being used or not a lot, that generally suggests it's bringing value to people because they're still continuing to use it from within there as well. But you also need to look at the sentiment, how people feeling about it. I love the measures that Microsoft have of how many free lunches would you give up to rather than having a Copilot license? And I think what was it, one a week was the most popular. I think it was like 77% or something, where people would be happy to not have a free lunch a week if they could keep their Copilot license. The number of people that want to retain their Copilot license having had it, all those things and those perspectives. Do you feel you're saving time? Do you feel you're improving the quality? Do you feel you're able to engage better with other people in meetings because you're getting that? What is the perception that you have of it, as well as what people are actually doing? So adding those elements into the absolute numbers, because unless you're working on a factory floor, it's very hard to measure productivity per se.
Yeah, I mean,
to know it's definitely coming from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've been asked a lot to help organizations understand the business case for Copilot. And it's really difficult to actually understand the financial business case at the moment, because we don't understand what the full actual cost of this is going to be over the next 2 to 3 years. So what we've been doing instead is looking at the value case. And actually, inside Avanade, we had a research study where we looked at time saving or time freed up, because time saving, it's not like a cashable thing anyway, is it? If every employee saves an hour a week, it's not going to impact. You're not going to be able
extra
to
hour in the pub.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to kind of demonstrate that time saving on the P&L, the bottom line of the organization. But what we found was that actually people were telling us that they had reduced cognitive load, that they were able to context switch better. We saw increases in people's ability to problem solve, that they felt they were being more innovative, more creative. So there were some really good things that came out of that. And I think we've got a white paper actually that's going to be published in a few days, which shares some of the things that we found at Avanade. So there might be some interesting stuff in that. But yeah, just looking at it purely in terms of time saved, I think is missing so much of the broader value that Copilot can bring.
Yeah, and it's a hard conversation, and I think the other thing that a lot of people see is it's going to be different for each individual, different for each group, different for each area of an organization. So look at those and understand the value to different areas that it can bring as well. But I think we should probably move on, because I know there's some sessions talking about that that we've got coming to cover that as well. So let's talk a little about how you can position yourself and your organization for success. We've got their prompting with context. We kind of cover this a bit, learning how to prompt, how to get the most of it. And we have some great sessions. I was going to name people, but I've watched a little bit of this one. Fabio Bonolo's got a really nice one about talking about the different ways to prompt. And that's a kind of generic generative AI, and talking about how it works in different areas as well. It's so important. Learning how to use the kind of almost canned prompts that you get with things like Copilot for Microsoft 365, even Copilot for sales. And then when to be kind of more specific and when to add those extra levels of details in there is really, really, really important within that. So you can help yourself. There's some great prompt courses, and as I say, some break sessions we've got coming up talking about prompting. You can learn about governance, adoption, and change. I didn't like bundling those together because there's very different things and different aspects. But Zoe is talking about the ugly of having that digital core that's not set up well. You've got to make sure that's in a good place, and that people understand how to use these technologies, that you're kind of taking them through that training, that understanding, helping them to build those habits. Because if people don't build the habits, they're not going to start using it as well. So help yourself by building your own habits, whether that's using Copilot for Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Copilot, which is available to everyone, whether you're using it within your organization. I've forgotten the long fancy name for it. That's the kind of enterprise version that isn't Bing Chat Enterprise. I really should remember that. Secure, isn't it? Oh, that's embarrassing. Within there, but making sure that you have locked that down effectively as well. Position yourself for that. And if you're on the development side, or even on the kind of system developments, low code side, have a look at extending and building, because once people have got to that good place of enabling some of the Copilots, the next phase is going to be, oh, but I want it to do this. Oh, but I want it to do this. Why can't it connect to this? Why can't I get it to that? Get yourself in a good place to understand how that is to happen. I'm going to be a little contentious and say that not everything is ready for that. It was great to see even more announced at Build. Not everything is there yet. Not everything is perfect. You can do things with Pro Code. You can do things with Copilot Studio, but not everything. But get yourself in a position where you can do that. And in fact, if you've come from a Power Platform world, looking at that enablement of citizen developers, you are in such a good place to kind of continue that on, to do the same thing with your extension, with your building of custom copilots, of assessing each of those needs that come in, working out, can this be done simply by using one of the SharePoint copilots? Can it be done by building something in Copilot Studio? Does it need to be a fully custom copilot that's going to use 5.3, Hugging Face, all sorts of different things at that different layer? Do you end up building your own LLM? This can fit into that. Well, please don't, please don't. But, you know, there are situations where that could make sense. Not many, so don't try it yet. But think about those things. Think about how you're going to build that assessment and be ready, because as we've seen, things move quickly. There's going to be a sudden jump, and those who are preparing themselves to understand how to extend and build in a way that they are comfortable with will be really well positioned for the future. But I guess, Zoe, we should probably point people at an area where they could learn a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully those of you who were tuned in to Build will have seen some of the exciting news that Donna Sarker shared. For the past few months, her and her team have been working on something that had the working name of the Copilot College, but they were told they can't call it a college because they're not giving people degrees. So it's been rebranded as
I've been thinking about this. So was it only renamed from that to stop Chris Huntingford going all frat boy? Is that the real reason?
I don't know. I wouldn't like to say, but entirely possible. So the Copilot Learning Hub was launched a couple of weeks ago. You can see the link on the bottom. This is a really, really valuable resource. So the intended audience is, this is more practitioners, people who want to understand how to deploy, how to prompt, how to build, how to extend. It's got tons of really practical content and advice, and there'll be loads more stuff being added as well. So definitely visit, bookmark, and use this as a way to help you get up to speed.
So if you're jumping ahead a slide, I was trying to copy that link and put it into the comments, but I'll do that afterwards instead. What I would say, if you go to Bing, I'm assuming, or Google, and look for Copilot Learning Hub, it came out as the first link, which is where I got it from. So it's nice and easy to find as well. Obviously, the other place you can learn is by continuing to follow Copilot Connection and all the great sessions we're putting out for Month of Copilot, as well as the regular Copilot Connection podcast. We try and bring together all the links, all the latest news, all the conversations that are going on, and point to other people, such as the Copilot Learning Hub, but others are doing some really lovely work within this. I was going to name a few there, but then I would forget someone and get in trouble from that. So we'll bring towards some credentials. You know, we want to bring people to where they can learn, not just come to Copilot Connection. So we'll happily share and point people towards that. And the people we've got speaking are absolutely fantastic at bringing this together as well. So why Copilot Connection in the Month of Copilot? We're trying to bring people who are being honest, who are criticizing. I know we don't always agree with the routes they're taking. There are things that don't work. I've already talked about Copilot Studio and the pain I'm having trying to get to the graph connectors and things like that. There are frustrations, and you will find frustrations with using Copilot. You'll make assumptions around what it can do. The number of people I've seen when they've got it going and said, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. Absolutely, it doesn't. It probably will in the future. It will if you tell Microsoft it's not doing, and that's what you want it to do. Microsoft is iterating so quickly on this, but we're going to try and bring those honest things, what works, what doesn't work on there. And that's why we'd love you to follow Month of Copilot and Copilot Connection. And what sort of thing are we expecting to cover? I mean, there's all sorts within here. I don't know, Zoe, if you want to pick up on any of these.
Yeah, I mean, like we said at the start, there's there are just such a huge number of really awesome sessions that we've had submitted. This is across the entire Microsoft tech stack, so you know, all of the different Copilot products. We've got sessions like the one Kevin mentioned a few minutes ago that help you understand how to prompt effectively lots of adoption, change enablement, change management focus sessions where people are really digging into how to deploy Copilot in a way that people are actually using it. We've got people doing demos, we've got real world stories of how people have deployed Copilot, how they've built things. So really bringing some of those real world experiences for you all.
Yeah, and that's covering things like Copilot for sales, Copilot for security. We've got a couple of sessions on that extensibility, building custom ones, Copilot in Azure, which I'm going to be honest, I'm really looking forward to because I haven't even tried to use that yet. It's one of the few I haven't have a chance to get on with there as well. And if there is something that you would like to hear, please let us know in the comments within there. Apparently I'm clipping a bit. It's probably me getting overexcited and leaning into the mic too much. I do get excited about Copilot, sorry. I will try and keep that down. But yes, do let us know if there's something particular you want to hear of, if there are particular elements, whether it's understanding those demos, whether it's how to use it, that real life experience. Do let us know. And to kind of keep up, please follow us. If you want any of the links, www.copilotconnection.com has links to everything. If you want to get some notifications by email, click on the link to Month of Copilot and subscribe up there. But probably the easier way, it's going to LinkedIn, search for Copilot Connection, go into YouTube, search for Copilot Connection, and follow our channel, follow our LinkedIn page, and we'll be broadcasting everything to that as well. And we are obviously on Twitter, apparently on X as well, but less said about that, the better. And we'll be sharing links to those things from there as well. So follow us on social media, and you'll be able to hear the latest.
And if any of you have something that you want to share, if you've if there was something that came out of build that you've been playing with or that you're really excited about and you feel like you missed the chance, just reach out to me or Kevin. We, like I said, we've got loads of really good content coming, but because this is a virtual event, we're not constrained by like physical room limitations or anything like that.
No
so
need
if you
to
do
fly
have
anywhere.
something,
yeah,
if you do have something you want to share, please just reach out to us and we can sneak that in.
It also means you can have as many drinks as you want in the after show party. Obviously none of us will be there, but you're welcome to have those drinks yourself and share some photos. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been really good doing this live. I think we might try this more often. We can get more organized on there, because it's been really good seeing the comments come in through this as well. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we really hope you enjoy the rest of the month of Copilot.
Thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure.